All right, let's drop another episode. No, we're not driving yet, but we're getting close. I'm hoping. I don't know if I'll do an episode next weekend. Things are kind of moving now that I've got this diff situated. So, really, next weekend will be a couple little minor things. So, not sure if I'm going to make an episode for that or if I'll wait until I get a lot more done. I'll kind of go over what I'm going to do next weekend. So that way when the next episode drops, I'll just kind of hit on it briefly. So we are back together. The front suspension is completely reassembled. Everything's torqued. Upper control arms, the new CWFs are in. Really liking these things. I like how they're black and kind of blend in with everything. New tie rods came in. Put in inner and outers. Those are brand new. I think I covered in the last video. One of these was kind of seized and I was trying to loosen it and it wasn't really working on the truck. So since I had to remove it to kind of get it taken apart, I ended up just buying new ones just in case I ended up having to do some destruction to get it apart. But so these are new. I don't know why, but for some reason tie rods don't come with new boots. So these are the old boots. I cleaned them as best I could. New clamps. Switched over the tie rod sleeves and they're all torqued in there. The only thing I haven't torqued is the axle nut. I got to wait till I get it on the ground with the wheels on. But it is pretty tight. I just have to do the actual torque. Spec on that. But new lower ball joint bolts. Right there. When I was hammering off the spindle, I kind of damaged the little nylon lock washer in the lowers, so I just bought new bolts. So got those on. They're torqued. I still have to install the front drive shaft. That'll probably be a next weekend project. Next weekend, my intention. Let's go to the back here. So the back has the brakes reassembled, new rotors, new pads. If anybody does brakes on these, just so you know, the pads are different inside and outside. I didn't pay attention until I got to the other side. But just something to note when you do brakes that look for these two kind of nipples. Let me see if I can get some light in there. Yeah, so those two things go on the outside pad. The inside pad is smooth. I actually think the inside pad was dimpled. So got this all reinstalled. It's ready to go. Ready for tires and wheels. But what I'm going to do next weekend is I'm planning on putting my fender liners back in. I don't really need to get to anything back here. That's pretty much done. The diff's full for the rear. So next weekend, I'm going to put the fender liners back in. Hopefully I remember where all the fasteners go. But I'll do that. Put the wheels on. I'm not going to put the flares on quite yet. I want to detail this thing with no flares on. That way I kind of get everything cleaned and a nice coat of polish underneath the flares. And then I will put the flares back on. So for the time being, just the fender liners on the rear will be going back. They're up there. The whole reason they're out is because I cleaned them because they were caked with mud. Let's see what else. Yeah, so I've already covered the front drive shaft. Probably put that in next weekend as well. So the plan right now is front drive shaft next weekend, fender liners for the rear. I'm going to leave the fronts out so I could access my oxygen sensors. I'll probably be putting those on maybe next weekend, maybe the weekend after. I still need to kind of tweak the exhaust So going to kind of try to do that all at the same time. Yeah, so hopefully we'll get that probably started next weekend as far as the exhaust tweaking. But yeah, so front diff's in, everything's reinstalled. Yes, I do run sway bar, even though a lot of people are against them. I like running mine. I still need to fill the front diff with fluid, so that will probably be a next weekend project as well. Probably maybe do coolant next weekend. It's going to depend whether or not I get that belt on. That'll probably definitely be a next weekend project. Once I get that belt on, get the other belt which drives the water pump, we'll fill it with coolant, and so all the fluids will be ready. Yeah, I think that's kind of really it right now. You know, this front has taken a little while. You know, I had some clearance issues. We got that all straight. As you can see, passenger side has plenty of clearance. This one I wasn't really worried about. So the Kings, you can see this nut here that holds this bottom mount. They're actually on the same, I should say, they're not on the same side. So this side, they point forward. The other side, they point backwards. So actually on the passenger side, the shock sits a little bit more forward. And then the other side, it sits, you know, a little bit more backwards. So the driver's side would end up being closer to the boot of the CV, and the passenger side would be farther. I did find an issue, so I'm not too worried about this clearance, but let me turn. So at full lock of the steering, at full droop, the boot of the steering actually hits the shock because of this being a little bit far forward. The other side, it just barely touches. I'm not too worried about that. Nothing's spinning, and the likelihood, you know, you're not going to be doing something, at least I'm not going to be doing something high speed, fully locked with fully locked steering at full droop to where this would be an issue. You know, at ride height, I'll check it again just to make sure, but I'm not too worried about that just because nothing's really spinning. If anything, it would just kind of rub a little bit, but I'll keep an eye on it as I drive it. I mean, for all I know, nothing's really changed in this aspect compared to how I had it before, other than maybe the alignment's a little off. But I'm going to assume it likely was rubbing before. This is still pretty much the same alignment that I had before. The tie rods might be a tad off, so my toe might be off, but that wouldn't affect the shock to boot clearance. That would all be in the caster and the camber, which should be close. I mean, it'll be a little off because I do have different control arms, and this one does kind of move it out a little. So camber and caster are probably a little off, but I don't think it's enough that it would affect that boot clearance. But we'll see once I get this someplace to do the alignment. But yeah, like I said, we'll be leaving these fender liners out until I get the O2s in. I'll probably drive it a few times before I put these back in. These ones aren't as bad as the rear. The rear are pretty involved because they kind of tuck behind the flare and some of the trim pieces on the back. So I'd like to get those in now, especially while I have the wheels off. I did paint this. I think I covered this in the last video where I've done a bunch of trimming. Yeah, I know it doesn't look the greatest, but the flare covers this, so I'm not too worried about it. I was more just wanting to protect this cut edge. So we got this nice and protected. It clears the tire at full stuff. And we're ready to run this thing with the full suspension cycle and not worry about hitting anything. Let's see what else. I think that's pretty much covers it. It doesn't feel like a lot's been done when I kind of go over it now, but it feels like a lot's been done. I mean, there was quite a bit involved with getting this all back together, getting the clearances right, waiting for boots, switching out, the boots off of the axles, which was a nice messy job, but we got it done. So yeah, we'll guess I'll make this one a short one. Catch you guys on the next one, and hopefully the next one will be maybe a start and move around, maybe even driving. We'll see. We'll see how the start moves around goes. Maybe I'll just do a quick little lap around the neighborhood. I can't rip on it right away. Obviously, I still have the tuning to do. And also, we have to break in the gears. So it's going to be about 500 miles of just kind of cruising around, getting the gears broken, which will be good because it'll give me some time to get the kind of drivability of the tune good before we start doing some rips and really seeing how this thing feels. So I'm trying to keep you guys updated as best I can. If anybody's got any questions, post in the comments, and I'll either answer them there or post up a video. So I'll catch you guys on the next one.